They said we could have it all. A great smile, fabulous body, stellar success in our careers, wonderful hair, attractive friends, cookery skills, advanced cookery skills at that, intimate sex as much as you want, as often as you like, and low blood pressure at the same time. Also, while always having deep, contented sleep, happy, well-adjusted children, and keeping everybody happy. They lied. It can't be done. In his international bestseller, Greg Mckeown's book, Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, Greg lays out how the mindset and the approach many of us have taken cannot work. We're doomed to fail. But he also lays out a strategy, an alternative approach to living and working, which he calls essentialism. And it really is about developing a mindset for meaningful focus. Today, I'd like to share with you 10 of the big ideas that I've taken from the book. But I'm going to say right up front, you're familiar with watching films sometimes, and the films will say it's based, right at the start, it's based on a true story. Based on a true story. Or inspired by real events. Well, this little webinar is based on a real book, but I have allowed myself to add a few ideas, to shape a few things, to drop one or two ideas, to get the pure, condensed, unadulterated version of Essentialism. Get the book. It's a great little book. But here's how I have interpreted what Greg has to share. So, according to Greg, our problem is that all of us suffer, many of us suffer, I have, from excess ambitions. We take on too much. We say yes to too many opportunities. We try to be expert in too many, guilty, in too many different disciplines. And we try to stay across the news as well. So we want to stay up to date. We just try to do too much, keep too many people happy. And there's a price when we do that, according to Greg. If we try to tackle too much and be too expert and be across too many things, we'll end up living busy lives. Sure, we'll be constantly in motion, but not really making much progress, not really going forward terribly much. So Greg says, look, we've all got a limited amount of energy and we're spreading it out too thinly in too many directions. He's not encouraging us to work harder. He's saying, look, just use the same energy you've already got, but focus it into fewer ambitions. Focus it to make significant progress in what matters most to you. His first piece of advice is we've really got to accept our human limitations. We don't like to think about it very much, but we only have a certain amount of energy in each day and a certain amount of time, of course, but also a finite amount of energy and time in a life. We tend to move away from that rather uncomfortable truth, but we all have limitations. There is a deadline, isn't there? There's a literal deadline. And since we only have a finite amount of energy, we can only achieve a finite amount of things. We need to be a bit more intentional about choosing what we're going to prioritize. So that's his first piece of guidance. Before we can do anything, we've got to get real and accept, hang on, I have some limitations. I have finite energy and finite life. He advocates a mindset of essentialism. And this is to say a mindset of meaningful focus, deciding what matters most and really narrowing down and choosing to invest more of your limited and irreplaceable life energy in what matters most. Now, to be fair here, this is a terrific book, but he's not the first to say this. Here's some words from Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, the Stoic philosopher emperor. And here's what he said in his personal journal, which none of us were ever supposed to read. Right, this was supposed to be a private journal. but somebody nabbed it and they translated it from the Greek, in which he wrote, into many languages, and here it is in English. Marcus's words. If you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential, which brings a double satisfaction. You'll be doing less better, because most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and more tranquility. So ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? It's hard to imagine that, 2,000 years ago, they were also spreading themselves too thin, trying to take on too much, saying yes to too many opportunities. But of course, they had the same human minds that we have today. We're the same creatures. We're easily distracted. And perhaps we still like to keep too many people happy. That's a big part of it. The first thing that Greg says is, look, once you've accepted you do have some limitations, you need to choose a personal mission. You need to decide for yourself what is most important. The rest of the world has got lots of ideas about what people like you ought to be doing. But if you don't choose, somebody else will choose for you. So right up front, what would make a meaningful life? What sort of direction would we like to choose to go in? So you can't choose a direction to go in until you've decided, what matters most. And Greg says that one of the problems that we all have is that we're so busy doing stuff and we're continually in a state of perpetual stimulation from scrolling through the news, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is, TikTok. We never allow ourselves to be bored. And he says actually being bored is a prerequisite to be having the space of mind to be able to clearly think about what matters most to you in this stage of life. We need to develop our capability to not be continually entertained, stimulated. We need to calm our minds. And Greg advises stepping back in life, getting some space, being out in nature and unplugged, he says, is particularly useful. So this is the first thing. We need to define a sense of mission, but in order to do that, we're going to have to clear our minds and be willing not to be continually stimulated for a while. Next idea, he says we need to discriminate. Now, discriminate, that word, gets a bad press. Oh, you shouldn't discriminate. That's a bad thing to do. But essentialists are excellent. They're very, very good at discriminating between what's most important and what's not. Now, when I first read this idea, I thought, yeah, I already know what you mean. You're talking about not watching as much Netflix, which would be a pity, but not wasting our time on frivolous matters. But that's not what Greg's saying here at all. I mean, he's saying, yes, yeah, of course you're not going to do the frivolous things, but he's saying actually in a life, there's a lot of things that are important. Very few are very important. And if you're going to be personally successful in your own endeavors, what matters most, you're going to have to say no to a lot of important things as well. Now, this is a big ask. You can't do everything that's important in life. According to Greg, we've got to be able to develop the capability to say no to what's important but not essential. Now, I'd just like to take a moment to salute mothers here. It's my experience that mothers are quite expert in prioritizing. They prefer, of course, to have a toddler and a tidy home and a sink with no washing up in it, to have well vacuumed rooms, to still be reading, to be doing all these other wonderful, worthwhile things. But they get it. Sometimes you just cannot do it all. You've got to prioritize. The essentialist takes this attitude to life. They prioritize what's important. They're saying no to a lot of things they'd rather say yes to. in the rest of their lives. Next thing, it's going to take courage to be an essentialist, because we're going to be saying no to things we'd really quite like to do, to things that do matter to us, to things that sometimes are be quite fun too. Now, courage, of course, is doing what's important in the presence of discomfort. It's being willing to do what matters most when you might not feel like doing it, but you've decided actually it is the most worthwhile thing to do. Now, we used to think that courage was something that people had. You either had a lion heart or you didn't. We now know that is not the case. Courage, actually, it's a skill. It's a psychological skill. It can be developed. And all of us can get better at being with discomfort and being willing to experience discomfort in the service of doing something that's important. So it's a skill. And can I just make a quick call out here? The people who are especially talented in helping others to develop these psychological skills to live and work courageously are, in my experience, are coaches with a particular background in an area called ACT, acceptance and commitment training, or acceptance and commitment therapy, sometimes called that, the ACT. I spent a lot of time working with ACT. I've written a book, Swipe Right on Your Best Self, which is about using ACT principles to live a life with fewer regrets that is more aligned with what matters to you. So know that you can build courage. Next step. You're going to need a great big waste paper basket. Now, bear with me. This may sound a little bit odd. You may have heard of the management guru, or you may not, the management guru, Peter Drucker. He's a bit of a giant in the world of productivity in the workplace, Peter Drucker. And he was approached by another giant in his own field. This is a giant in the field of positive psychology, a guy called Mckeown. He's the man behind this idea of flow, being in flow states. And Mckeown, the giant, approached Peter Drucker and said, "I'd like to interview you for my book." Bit of an honor. Here are the words that Peter wrote back to Mckeown. He said, "I am greatly honored and flattered by your kind letter of February the 14th. For I have admired you and your work for many years, and I've learned much from it. But, my dear Professor Csikszentmihalyi, I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. I hope you will not think me presumptuous or rude if I say that one of the secrets of productivity is to have a very big waste paper basket to take care of all invitations such as yours." So, Peter Drucker has developed the skill of very gracefully saying no. The life of an essentialist is predominantly saying no to non-essential activities. Now, that's not to say that you're always going to do, there will be room. But the essentialist, according to Greg Mckeown, is quite expert at saying no to other people. And in his book, Essentialism, he provides a number of strategies for how you might go about that. Sentence structures which might let the other person down so they're not unnecessarily upset and offended. The next idea is eliminate or to prune. So all of us in our lives have committed to a number of activities and it could be hobbies or commitments in the past, and we may still have them today. And we need to perform an audit on where our time and energy is going. The essentialist needs to look and revisit where in the past she had chosen to invest her energy and decide, okay, today, if I was given the opportunity to begin this today, would I say yes? How much effort would I put in to doing this thing today if it just arrived today. We all have a challenge with something called the sunk cost bias. And it's almost as if we've been doing something for a while, we've been investing perhaps like some time or money or energy into a project, we're very, very reluctant to abandon it. But I've spent so much time on it. It can be very, very hard. However, there can be a very, very high cost in pursuing a project that isn't really a good fit with you today. And I'd like to just confess, I have done this in workplaces. I have stayed in jobs where really I should have moved on sooner. I've stayed in relationships in which actually, I really should have had the courage and done a bit of an audit, a life audit, and stepped back from them sooner. So look, just ever so briefly in the chat, I'll be interested in knowing, has anyone else had an experience along those lines where perhaps you may have invested energy into people, into projects, but a longer time than perhaps, with hindsight, they really deserved? What have we got? Is it having a quick look? Oh, Andrew, you're there. Lovely to see you. Yeah, Jennifer has, yes. I think we all have. So we're looking for a bit of honesty here. The life of the essentialist is one of being really honest with yourself. Being really honest about what you care about and where your energy perhaps isn't well spent. Yet, Joe, you and me both, hey? This happens in life. Georgia, yeah, it's time's going where it shouldn't be. Andrew too. It is hard to quit. Yeah, it's difficult. There's a lot of clapping done if you persevere. You get a lot of points for persevering. But actually, sometimes we need to fold our hands, fold our deck, I think the expression is. Is that what it is? Is that what you do? Do you fold a deck in poker when you give up? You back off? Okay, we need to get good at auditing and eliminating. And yes, it is tough. Hard to say no, Lisa, without giving a reason or explanation. Yeah, there are some tips in the book for how to let others down. And so I suggest looking at the book. But sometimes we believe we need to give a reason, but we don't. It's almost as though our own reasons aren't enough. So to a greater extent, I think we need to back ourselves. So I'd love to do that thing. If only I didn't have this other commitment, which I need to prioritize. But thank you. Thank you so much. Let's move on. Back to my screen. Where were we? Eliminate. Yes. Next thing we need to do is easify. New word that I created. We need to easify our lives. Now, what do we mean here? Well, yes, choosing to do the right thing does require courage, and that's draining. Now, we do need to develop that capability to do the right thing when necessary. But we would be much wiser if we were to architect our lives to make it easy. Now, some of the ways that this can be done are by managing our environments, just to clear them of clutter and to clear them of distractions. So every single object in your world is a magnet for your attention. Right? Every single object is going to remind you of something or other. Right? All objects remind you of something. And we run the risk, if we live in environments which are filled with irrelevant objects, let's say, of being needlessly distracted, having our attention pulled in directions which are not aligned with our mission, our primary purpose. So we need to easify our lives. So clear the external environment for certain. But one of the best things we could do, one of the biggest things we can do, is establish routines in our life. So we don't have to choose to do the most important thing. It's just what we do at that time of the day. So if you can carve out a certain time and schedule, actually between 7 o'clock and 8:30 or what have you, that's when every day, without having to choose how to do it, that's when I work on such and such. So the advice is to bring these important projects forward in the day so the rest of life's demands don't crowd them out, and develop a habit. Now, B.J. Fogg, who's the director of I think it's called the behavioural unit at Stanford University, he says the key thing, if you want to embed a new habit, the key thing that most people don't do is to celebrate instantly the moment you've done this habit. So the moment you've done the thing that you'd like to do more often, you need to celebrate immediately, absolutely immediately. Now, you know who knows about, in fact, let me ask you, before I tell you, I'm curious if you can guess. Let's just see if you can guess. Who understands this better than anyone else? I've got two groups in mind in the chat box. Who understands better than anyone else that if you want to embed a habit, that you need to, it was B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits book, Jane, is where he talks about this. You embed the habit, you lock it in by having an immediate celebration. Coaches are good, Georgia. They've got a good, sports people are good too. I've got someone else in mind though. I need you all to read my mind. Okay, Paul, kindergarten teachers, yes. Look, you're all correct, of course, but I need you to read, I'm being unreasonable. I need you to read my mind. Who am I thinking of? No, it's not Dogs, Animal Trainers, or James Clear. Look, Atomic Habits is a good book, but Jane, but I think Tiny Habits might have the edge. I think it's a little bit more practical. Here we go. No, it's not. Look, all great suggestions, but that's not what I was getting at. It's games designers and pokey machine operators. Okay, these people are brilliant at giving you the experience. A games designer, you know, those pokey machines, they give you the experience of celebration, of having won, even when you've lost. They're just terrific at it. There'll be da-da-da, and there'll be some stars, ba-ba. And I would just like to confess, recently I should never have started. I started playing a game on the phone. It was a terrible mistake. And at the end of each level, I'll tell you the name. It's called Homescapes. Don't start it. At the end of every level, and you get through the levels pretty quickly, at the end of every level, this butler appears and starts clapping. He starts clapping. And the weird thing is, he's just saying yes. He's celebrating instantly that you've got through this level. And your conscious mind thinks, well, there's no way that's going to influence me. But you feel like having another go. You feel like keeping going. It's very clever. So I was thinking of games designers and pokey machine operators. They know about the power of an instant celebration. We need to do that too. When you do anything in life that's important, that's worthwhile, that you'd like to do more easily and more often, you must pat yourself on the back. And you can do this in really simple ways. You could just say, if Karen, if it's you, you could say, yes, Karen. And Georgia can say, yes, Georgia. You can say it to yourself. I might use my own name. Yes, Eric. You can do that. Or say whatever is the equivalent for you, whatever works for you. But be quick. Be quick about it. What's next? We need to celebrate small wins during the day. We need to celebrate progress. Now, Teresa Amabile is a professor at Harvard Business School, and she wrote a book. She wrote a book called The Progress Principle, using small wins to ignite joy, engagement, and creativity at work. According to Professor Amabile, the experience of progress is the most powerful motivator when it's progress in something that matters to you. When you experience progress in something that's personally important, it's a very powerful motivator. It's a fuel. It's a fuel. It will dial up your energy to do more of that. And we shouldn't be surprised. Those of you who have read my book remember the chapter on movement, in which we talk about how the animals only have brains The only reason an animal has brains is in order to move from where they are to where they would like to be. You need a brain, it turns out, to navigate, to go around obstacles, to go over things, to get places. And brains are nourished by the experience of movement towards what they want. We call it progress. So it's brain food. Your brain lights up. So we need to have the experience of progress. And what I'd like to underline here, and I can see our time's almost up, what I'd really like to underline here is it's not enough to have progress. You need to have the experience of progress. Okay? It's the experience of progress. So when you have progress, you need to pause and savor it, relish it, taste the fact that yes, I'm a little bit closer. And that will help embed. It'll fuel your energy, but it'll also help embed the behaviors. Jerry Seinfeld, fabulous comedian. Apparently, what Jerry did every day of his working life was to write one joke a day. And when he'd written his one joke, he'd made his progress, he would put a cross on a calendar he had on the wall. So he had a visual indicator of progress. The Essentialism book recommends that we have visual signs of our progress. So don't just think it. Have something up, some kind of a chart, have stars going up a wall. Be silly about it, but it matters. We need visual representations of progress. We need to celebrate all small wins. Okay, I think we're close to the end now. So we've got a summary here. I would like you to look through the things we've covered and decide which one of these, if you were to do one, just one, which one might make the biggest difference to you. And I'm going to ask you, not yet, but in a moment, to type that into the chat, okay? Would it be one, just taking on this fact that we're taking on excess ambitions? Or would it be choosing to really accept your limitations, your finite energy, your finite lifetime? Would it be just embracing the concept of doing less, but doing it better? Perhaps it's choosing a mission, a personal purpose, really getting clear about what it is you'd like to do with this one life. Perhaps it's dialing up your capability to discriminate. This is such an important skill. Greg says it's the most important skill for essentialists. It's actually recognizing the choice points in life. It's not the choosing, it's what happens prior to choosing to do the courageous thing. Actually noticing, this is a choice point. Is this essential or isn't it? That's the discrimination. Then we need the courage to actually take perhaps a harder path after we've discriminated it. Do you need to get better at saying no to others? You need a bigger basket. That could be the case. Or would it be elimination? Would it be pruning your commitments in life? Or maybe you need to easify your life, embed some good habits, some rituals. Or is it celebration? Is it celebrating progress? Look, there's a lot of opportunity there. Of course you can do them all, but which one thing, if you were to do one of these first, in the chat box, Narita, it's eliminate. Lisa, easify. Jane, practice being bored. That's the one I'm practicing just now, by the way. It's intentionally allowing myself to be bored. Some elimination there, Mirella. Yep, Karen, accepting. Yes, you're limited. We are finite creatures. Celebration, Andrew. Celebrating instantly, yeah, in a fun and creative way. Love it. Accepting our limitations. Easify. Yeah, let's have some fun there. More limitations, less but better. Easifying. Mission. Doing less. The big basket, Melinda. Good luck with that. Many things there. Right. What is next? Yes. So look, I just wanted to say that, of course, we can do these things by ourselves. However, I run a lot of coaching training in organizations, teaching people to have coaching conversations so that they can support others to change their behavior, to be more effective and productive at work. Could I suggest that you consider getting a coach? to support you if you're going to make a big change. I have a coach. Consider seeing a coach. And in particular, my impression, it's my belief, that the ACT-informed coach is best placed to, the most aligned with this concept of essentialism. They're all about working on what's most meaningful, even when it's personally challenging, developing that capability of willingness to do what's hard, but right. I have some suggestions. There's two people I'd like to mention. Priscilla Amada is a ACT-informed coach based in the Blue Mountains, does terrific work. And also Ross McIntosh. He's the host of the People Soup podcast. I spent a lot of time working with Ross. He's done a lot of training on how to build courageous mindsets in workplaces. Ross is also available for coaching training, as I am myself, if you'd be interested in working with me. If you are a coach, and I know we have a lot of coaches on the call today, if you're a coach that just maybe has a little ACT exposure, or maybe none, may I suggest speaking to someone in particular who does a really good job of helping coaches dial up ACT in their work. It's Nadine Hemmer. Nadine is based in, I think it's in Luxembourg. Nadine was my supervisor for a while, and right now Nadine has teamed up with another giant in the world of ACT, Benji Schoendorf. Nadine and Benji are providing training to coaches so they can infuse the way they already work with ACT concepts. So we're at the end of this talk. The challenge that Greg gives us is, look, we can either live by design or we can live by default. It's entirely up to you. I hope this has been enjoyable and worthwhile. Over and out.